What's going on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all you good people that's tuned in. This is a Victory Monday show for the Atlanta Falcons. They got a 27-24 win at home against the Chicago Bears in front of all those lovely Chicago faithful that came down and took over the bench. Shout out to y'all. But before we get into it, let me reintroduce ourselves. I'm Nate. My boy Mike is back. What's going on, Mike?
How you doing, man? Let's get to it. It was a exciting game, typical Falcons game. Came down to the wire, but hey, we used to it.
Yes, sir. Another stressful home game. I don't think we've had but one home game that didn't go down to the wire. That was a San Francisco game back in week 6. Every other game, you leave the game like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah, every game that we have had this season, you leave and you're just like, man, we could have lost that game. Every single game. Like, I kid you not, the Falcons are 4-2 at home, but there's only one game that I've left and just felt comfortable leaving the game. The last 3 home games. I promise you, this is an entertainment show watching these Falcons.
Hindsight is 20/20, but looking back at it, look at those first couple of games of the season against the Saints and the Rams. Those teams look terrible right now.
Yes.
And those are games that we dropped.
Blew one game and nearly came back in the other game, and it's crazy. But guys, we're gonna do something different tonight. I'm actually gonna pull up a clip from the Falcons game. We're gonna touch on some of the highlights of the game if you missed it yesterday. So let's go ahead and bring this screen up, and we're gonna go ahead and hit this live. As you see me and Mike on the side of the screen, let's get to the first play that they got up. I think this got to be that Algier run. So this is on the first drive. This run was big, honestly, early in the game because we needed that run.
This entire first drive it was perfectly scripted.
Yes, sir. Now, this play right here, I'm not even going to tell no lie. I snapped on Mariota as he was throwing the ball because Drake was wide open already when this play happened.
Yeah. They actually showed that. Drake was open for at least 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And this was a dangerous throw.
It was. He really was open way sooner than that.
Because if that gets tipped, that's a pick 6.
Yes, sir. Okay, that was a first down conversion. I don't think we got any points on that drive. Let's see what play was this right here. This was a pretty good tackle by Isaiah Oliver.
Hey, but that's typical Falcons look. Normally, the receiver doesn't try to catch that.
Yes, sir. Let's see what play is this right here. That's Lorenzo. By the way, we got to re-sign Lorenzo Carter. I want Lorenzo Carter back in Atlanta in 23.
Justin Fields with just a 4-man rush here. When you play Justin Fields, you really have
I want him back in Atlanta, and I think, and they ran 70 million of these plays yesterday. Like, that got on my nerves. I'm not gonna tell a lot.
They had their fair share of success, but we made the stops when we needed to.
Yes, sir. Oh man, we know what this is. This is the NFL record breaker for Cordero Patterson. This hurt the whole game. And because Bears fans was cutting up until this play happened. This turned
I'm not 100% sure that we go down there and score on a drive. So we needed this.
I don't think so either. I think that was huge. He had fumbled. A lot of you, I'm not sure if you watched the game. He fumbled on the drive previous that ended up turning into a Bears touchdown to go up 10. So made a huge way of redeeming himself on this play. So yeah,
it's crazy. This man is in his mid-30s and he's out running.
Yeah. Another funny thing, that's the second Bears player to break their record in it as a Falcon. Devin Hester did it back in 2014 with the Buccaneers, against the Buccaneers. So that was a big moment in the game.
Not been pretty since that opening drive.
Like that, and we haven't had a kick return since the 2010 playoffs.
That's great.
When Eric Weems ran that bad boy back against the Green Bay Packers. I know you probably remember that play.
That's a name right there.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, y'all, this was a big point of the game where it cut us back into the game, and this is a 3-point game at this point. Now, this was a great tackle by Arnold Ebiketie, who, by the way, I think he needs to be our starting DN on the opposite side of Lorenzo Carter. And he
I thought he missed this. I thought he missed it.
We did too. We thought so in the stadium. We were like, man, he missed his field goal.
Rushing offense in the NFL, looking to throw here on the
oh my God, look at that pressure that was coming.
Another 4-man rush. When can you ever say that about the Falcons?
Yeah, you never. look at Lorenzo Carter and Evan Kennedy on this play. They both were getting back there.
Carter got there, but couldn't bring him down. Fields keeps him alive.
Now this guy here, that Justin Fields hit some crazy plays in this game too on the run.
Second and long, out of the
but they probably not going to show it. That was a big play right there from good rush from Grady Jarrett. So this is when the game was tied. Like it was a kind of a iffy game for a good minute there.
Falcons rush only 4.
But look at that. Oh my God.
Man.
Pressure was crazy from Arnold Ebiketie.
Again, 4-man rush.
Yeah. We need to give a lot of our rookies more opportunities to get on the field and make plays throughout the season. That also goes. This is Zacchaeus' only play of the game. He was one catch of the game. It was key on that go-ahead drive. This got to be the Mariota touchdown. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was going to fumble. Just by the way he ran, I thought he was going to fumble that.
Thought he would hurt.
I got scared, man. I ain't going to lie.
I don't know if that was something that Arthur Smith called on purpose or just kind of fell in that way. But
this was the play that gave us the lead in the game. And then Young O came through clutch with that big field goal right there. We needed that.
Because we didn't that drive, we messed up on that drive. Like we made some mistakes.
We did. We should have ran more clock on that drive. I was angry at this drive, man.
The third down play was a wheel route. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But
Jalen Hawkins with another key pick this season.
And I mentioned how the Falcons' last drive was terrible. The Bears' last drive was even worse.
Horrible. They ran like a quarterback sneak on first down, and you're down 3 with no timeouts. I thought that was awful.
Will stay right in the heart of the playoff hunt.
All right, that is the moment. That was the 5-minute recap of the game, but we wanted to touch on that to show you guys a different perspective. We want to show y'all the highlights of the game before it happened, before we got into this game. But that was a big win for the Falcons. They improved to 5-6. They're still in the wild card picture, which is crazy because this team really have had a rough last 2 weeks. So they're like a game and a half out of the wild card race. The 49ers are 5-5 entering tonight's game. They got the Cardinals in about an hour and a half.
And
the Commanders are actually on a 4-game winning streak. So they're 6-5. That's a big game coming up for us next week too. But before we kind of get into that game, Mike, how did you feel about the game overall?
Man, it was a roller coaster full of emotions per usual for us, so we should be used to it. I think we got back to our bread and butter, which is being physical, controlling the line of scrimmage on offense, because we didn't do a show last week, but that show would have been brutal. That Carolina game, we got punked. I'm not gonna lie, the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, they punked us. And it's no disrespect to Carolina because they're a good, young, physical team on defense. But that's supposed to be our mantra, physicality. And I just felt like, you can blame the weather conditions, but they had to play in the same conditions. And then PJ Walker didn't even start this. Baker Mayfield, they got a quarterback conundrum in Carolina. And he played against us, and he did well enough to win. But this game was it was to be expected. Chicago, although in the win-loss column, it doesn't reflect. Justin Fields has been putting that team on his back, and he has been balling. He's been, I think, over the last 3 games prior to this game, he was averaging close to 150 rushing yards per game. And that's insane. He was putting up Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick numbers, and I've been very impressed with him. I was nervous because we usually our defense breaks down against mobile quarterbacks. But Dean Pease had he had some good moments. He had better moments, better than prior games. But I knew our defense would keep us in the game. We just needed our offense to have a competent game, which is something that we didn't have against Carolina, which is why we lost. So overall, I'm pleased. There's a lot of things we need to fix if we want to win this week against a hot team that's beating some pretty solid teams. We got to get better. And we're going to be without some key pieces. But, hey, that's football. We got to move on. We got to move forward.
I agree 100%. I feel like I got to give credit to the defense in this ball game because, to be honest with you all, the Falcons came out so flat on offense after that first drive. And it was a miracle that we didn't go down by double, maybe even 17 early in that game before the Cordero Patterson touchdown cut the lead to 3, because we had a fumble on Avery Williams, fumbled a punt return early in that game that turned into Bears points. No, the Bears actually got stopped. The defense got to stop right there. Cordero Patterson fumbled on the drive that turned into a 17-7 game, or no, it was 10-7. And then they got stopped on 3 and out, and they got right back down the field and went up 10. And the Falcons really could have lost the game, and it could have got ugly early. But the defense, after they fought back before the half, played outstanding football. They played outstanding football. It took Justin Fields being Justin Fields for them to score again early in that fourth quarter. And even with that, like, they got a couple of stops throughout the game on a couple of key drives. The defense got, I believe they had 4 sacks yesterday. As we were talking about on the clips, Arnold Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter had a field day. Grady Jarrett had a good day. So the D-line actually had a pretty productive day despite losing Taquan Graham to a knee injury early in that game, which I was really down about, because, I mean, he's been probably the second best defensive lineman behind Grady this season. Of course, the defensive tackles, not the defensive linemen, as far as the edge rushers. But I think that, as Mike mentioned, Dean Pease actually called his best game of the year, which is crazy to say because it was a 3-point win. But to me, that was one of his better games that he called. And for what you have on defense, you did enough to keep that game from really getting out of control when it could have got out of control. So the defense really get a lot of credit for keeping us in that ball game and coming up with a key interception to close the win out, because I don't know what would have been the state of the Falcons had they lost yesterday, because that would have been demoralizing to lose another game like that against a team that you can beat, because let's be honest, the last week alone was a rough one, because you had an opportunity to beat the Chargers and blew it, and then you went out and just didn't show up against Carolina. So it was big for us to get that win. I will have to say, like Mike said, as far as our offense, we got back to being physical yesterday. And to me, that's the pedigree of the Atlanta Falcons. You got to play physical football if you're going to win a ball game. And the thing is, Arthur Smith, I have my ups and downs with him. He has goofy play call at times, but Arthur Smith has actually, I like the direction that the team is headed in, because honestly speaking, I said we'll be 5-6 through the first 11 weeks. And it's funny because we actually have matched that record. And that was just me being totally optimistic at the time. But to actually see them be 5-6 right now, and next week having the game that matters the way it do, was kind of key. But let me touch these comments real quick. Buddy said, "What's up? What's going on, bro? What's going on, man? Good to see you on stream."
My guy, what's up?
And Byron said, "Did Drake disappear from the entire game?" I'm going to be honest.
He only had 3 targets.
Yeah. He had 3 targets. And then, honestly, I don't feel like to me, I don't know how much Arthur Smith trusts Marcus Mariota as a passer. Because this was the same thing with Pitts prior to him having an injury, which, of course, if you have not heard, Pitts had an MCL injury. He's going to get surgery, so he's going to miss at least 4 weeks. So that's a big loss for us over the next couple weeks. Hopefully we can get him back by the New Orleans game. If not losing him for the season, hopefully we don't lose him for the season. But I don't think that Arthur Smith fully trusts Marcus Mariota as a pocket passer. And I think that also sort of limits Drake London getting the reps that he would like to receive, because Drake London is a talented receiver. A lot of times he's one-on-one. So, it's kind of a tricky situation with this comment right here, because it's not even that Drake London is not productive. He just don't get the ball thrown his direction. Don't know if a lot of you know we're the second worst team in the league in passing.
And
but, Mike, what do you think about that?
If you pay attention, also he's actually a pretty good run blocker. So I know it may not show up in the stats, but I'm pretty sure the coaches are happy with his production so far this year. And to add to the comment, we're not a passing team. I know that sucks to say, And I know a lot of people are frustrated with that, but hey, I mean, I don't know if we're where we are if we were a passing team. Like that's just the makeup of our team, you know. The players respond to that. They enjoy that type of style. You can look at them. Look at the running back group. They love running and just smashing into somebody because that's just the makeup of Arthur Smith, and they've gravitated toward his style of play. And I don't know if we're gonna see Drake London have a breakout game this year per se, where he's having like 7, 8 targets for 100 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. I just don't think we're gonna see that right now.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Let me hit the next comment. Armand, what's going on, bro? He says Smith needs more time to implement the scheme. It'll take 2 more years to see the flowers blossom. I do agree with it needs more time, but I think he's going to get one more. I think it'll be another year before we can see it really implemented because this was kind of I'm not going to say this was a dead year, but you kind of knew coming into the season we were limited talent-wise because we had the Matt contract still on the books. We had the Julio contract still on the books. Deion Jones contract, I think, is not on the books. I'm not sure about that. I have to look it up. But we got a lot of dead money on the books this season that's going to be gone next year. So they're kind of working with what they have. I think the biggest thing for me is we got to get a chance to eventually see if – I don't think it's going to happen unless we get out of playoff contention as far as Desmond Ridder. I would like to see him at some point, but I don't think it's going to happen unless the Falcons are totally out of playoff contention. Now, if we would have lost yesterday, it wouldn't have shocked me if they said, all right, we're going to give this man some burn because we kind of want to see what we're going to do in 23. But at this moment, it's hard to really know what direction that they want to kind of go with this offense scheme. But I will say this, the Falcons rushing attack is absolutely effective. We had and this is nothing against the group of Algier Huntley. I love the running back by committee, but this speaks volumes that the scheme is starting to come to formation because they are actually number 3 in the league in rushing still right now, which is really impressive considering the talent that is in the backfield, because what last year was a very strong weakness for the Falcons has actually become a really big step for them. And I don't think we've been top 10 in rushing since the Super Bowl season, if I'm not mistaken.
No, and Algier and Cordero, they both combined for 100 yards on less than 20 carries yesterday. So they're efficient. They get their yards, and I think we went for like 150 yards. So I to this comment, I feel like we're more so a year away because it's really determined on the quarterback situation because we haven't even seen what this offense looks like with a passing threat. Can you imagine the read options, the zone read, running the RPOs with this? Like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to speak this into existence, but can you imagine this offense with a Lamar Jackson type player? Like, that takes this offense to a whole nother level. Like, we're 3rd in rushing. Think about with a running quarterback he has his natural, like Mariota, he's more of an athlete, but you add that passing attack to it, that opens up the offense even more. And going back to the Drake London situation and even Kyle Pitts, think about what that does for the receivers and the tight ends. That opens up so much space. So I agree that it'll be about a year or two, but I think that's more determinable on the quarterback situation.
I like how you put that. Darrell, what's going on, bro? He said, how do you think that the Pitts injury will affect the offense? I mean, it's not like you feed them medium. I mean, you're right about that. That's the hard part about it. And I think it'll be more so tough from the threat perspective, more so than the execution, because as you said, Kyle Pitts was not really getting fed the ball like he should. We've been screaming about it all season long. But I do think that the Falcons are gonna have to get a little more creative with the threat of Kyle Pitts being out of the offense, because now you don't have that mindset of they're gonna throw to Kyle Pitts. So now you're gonna have to get a little more creative. with the receiving core, I think you're going to see a little more of Drake London getting fed. They're going to have to probably, to me, you got to start getting, it's as weird as this sounds, I'm sure Mike may agree with this. To me, Marcus Mariota's best receiver as far as chemistry-wise is starting to be Damiere Byrd. So you might start seeing him get a couple of reps this upcoming games. And to me, you got to continue to run that rock. Now it's going to be kind of a challenge this week because Washington, they're not the best team at stopping the run, but you have Chase Young and that group out there in Washington. They're at home. They're on the winning streak. So you're going to see what's going to happen with this rushing attack over the next 2 weeks. We got two really good defensive lines coming up. So that's going to be pretty tricky to see how the Falcons will implement that. But I think it affects it more so as the threat is out of the picture of a Kyle Pitts more so than the scheme. What you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I think we always hear the term or phrase, it's a game within the game. And while we may not force feed Pitts like we think we should, because I frankly believe that one of these days he's going to be able to average 90 to 100 receiving yards per game. I think he has that capability. But the game within the game, those opposing defensive coordinators, they're not putting scrubs on Kyle Pitts. Even though he's not getting the ball, I guarantee they're not putting their worst defender on him. I guarantee they're committing two guys on him. They're shading coverage towards him, towards where he's going. So I believe that it's going to greatly impact the offense. And I think there's going to have to be somebody that steps up. And I believe that could be Drake London. It should be. I think at this point in the season, he's no longer a rookie. I know you always hear that in college ball. Once you get to like week 8 or week 9, you're no longer a freshman if you've been playing 6 week 1. So he's no longer a rookie. So he has to step up and not play as a rookie. He has to play as the number 1 receiver, what we drafted him to be. And he's gonna have to take that pressure off of the offense, because now look in the middle of the field or on the corners, they're gonna be able to commit more people to getting to the quarterback now. They're not going to have to drop back as many people to make sure that Kyle Pitts doesn't go off. So I think that's going to greatly impact even our running game. Because now, even yesterday, the commentators were mentioning that's a route that's for Kyle Pitts. And we ran it for Pruitt. And it was – I'm not even talking about the wheel route at the end of the game. I'm talking about it was a play prior on the second drive in the fourth quarter where we ran a play and it was towards the end zone. And the tight end doesn't have that athletic ability to make that play, even if it was an accurate throw. So I think Arthur Smith is going to have to get creative, because he's going to take some plays out that was initially for Kyle Pitts, because it's not going to work with the tight ends we have. We don't have that deep threat anymore. So I'm interested. I'm very curious as to how Arthur Smith is going to make these adjustments, but I believe he will. I believe you're going to see more Drake London. I think he's going to be averaging 8 or 9 targets per game. He's not going to average 2 targets. He's not getting next week. He won't get 2 targets. He's going to get his fair share of targets to prove himself. And I think with a running game, they're going to be able to commit more people in the box because there's no deep threat anymore. You had Damiere Byrd, but Mariota is going to have to prove that he can consistently hit the deep ball in order for us to have any running game for the next couple of weeks without Kyle Pitts.
And I'm going to add to what you just said. Another thing that I feel that is going to challenge Arthur Smith to do. I don't know if a lot of people really pay attention to this, but at this moment, I don't know if I know me and Mike we'll look at certain particular stats. Like everyone look at the passing and rushing stats, but there's one key stat that the Falcons got to get better at. The Falcons are number 11 in the average drive, which is like 20, is basically having the ball at least 25 minutes a game. But there's one big issue with this Falcon team that has to be changed over the next couple of weeks with the injuries that you're having. Yesterday, we haven't showed the stats yet. The Bears had the ball for 35 minutes. We were on the field for 24 minutes and turned the ball over twice. 99% of the time, that's a losing formula. But the Bears are just as bad as us. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. But if you think about this thing long term, they're averaging 25 minutes holding the ball. Your opposing offense is hitting the ball at least half of the game. That's going to have to change if the Falcons are going to stay in this playoff hunt and win games. They're going to have to get creative, like Mike said. They're going to have to run that ball effectively, and they're going to have to be smart with that clock, because being on the field for 25 minutes a game is not a winning formula when you don't have the key weapons to win. So the Falcons are going to have their hands full with that. So it's going to be big for Arthur Smith to get creative with this team because, as I just mentioned, the Falcons are not on the field a lot. The offense the problem is when they make solid drives, they're good. But the issue is the Falcons have a touchdown drive, then go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, field goal, 3 and out, turnover, touchdown again, 3 and out, 3 and out. It's too inconsistent with the Falcons. And then it's to a point where the defense, like early in yesterday's game, they pulled this game off. That's why we credited the defense the way we did. The defense had to be on the field so much because the offense and special teams can turn the ball over. You cannot find yourself in that predicament against Washington coming up or even against Pittsburgh, because let's be brutally honest. We love our Atlanta Falcons, but 2 weeks from yesterday, which is going to be December the 4th, we will not have home field advantage in Mercedes-Benz. There will be at least 50% Pittsburgh fans. So you're going to have to look at it like this. You're going to be a road team technically for the next 2 weeks. So you better get it together if you're Arthur Smith, because not having that threat of Kyle Pitts, even with him not getting the ball much this season, is going to be something that they're going to be keying on. They're going to be like, they don't have Kyle Pitts. Are we scared of Anthony Ferguson? Michael Pruitt? Are we scared of those guys? No. Parker Hesse? No. Believe me, they're thinking about those things. So, like Mike said, they may stack the box against us next week in Washington or even against Pittsburgh. So he's going to have to get real creative coming up. But go ahead, Mike.
Let me ask you this question. Last year, Cordero Patterson had 67 targets at receiver. I think this year he has 11. He only has like 7 catches. I think the game plan going forward, until we find out the extent of the severity and how long Pitts will be out, with the way the running backs played during the time that Cordero was out, do you foresee a stretch where we line him up in the slot and we put him out wide and let the running backs go, and so we add a weapon to the receiving corps since we're going to be without Cal for a while?
Personally, I would, because to me, Cordero Patterson has always been sort of a gadget guy. I think Arthur Smith is the first person that's really used him right, because he's become a running back in this system. But I would line him up I would throw him out there in receiving packages. To me, you got to get, I'm not saying go totally back to what you were last year with Matt Ryan, but I'm saying, like you just mentioned, Cordero Patterson was a borderline Pro Bowler last season because he was so productive. So you got to start, to me, like you said, Mike, I would still utilize him in the rushing attack, but I also want to see him out there catching some passes, because you got Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier who's going to make them productive runs. They're going to get you maybe 50 yards a game, and that's great for a running back by committee. So you can still use him, and like you said, you don't want to overuse him, but you want to throw that out there enough to say, hey, Kyle Pitts may be gone, but remember, Cordero Patterson had a big year last year. We got Cordero Patterson was almost a Pro Bowler. Don't forget about him. So I do agree with that 100%. But I want to show y'all the stats from this game. Also, before I get into, as I'm pulling up the stats, I want to go ahead and say again, shout out to the Falcon fans. I mean, there was a lot of Bears fans in the building. Go ahead and get it out the way too. A lot of y'all sold y'all tickets to the game. It's all good. I ain't mad at you because them tickets were going a little high on StubHub and Ticketmaster, but I see y'all though. Anyways, we had about 69, I think it was attendance of 759 people at the stadium. Numbers are actually better attendance wise this year than it was last year. So, it's good to see the fans coming back to turn out again. And I hope y'all get a chance to get out there, even though they're a very entertaining team. But let's get these stats up real quick. As you can see from yesterday, let's go full screen with that one. Yesterday, you see the 27-24 victory for the Falcons. Justin Fields was 14-21 for $153 for a touchdown and a pick. He got sacked 4 times in the game. Marcus Mariota, 13-21, 31, a touchdown. Didn't get sacked yesterday. Shout out to the offensive line for that. Justin Fields also led their team in rushing with 18 carries for 85 yards. No wonder why the boy's shoulder was hurt. He has to do everything. It's ridiculous.
Man, for what he's done the last couple of weeks, he just rushed for 172 on somebody. So
yeah,
I know he had some great runs, but I can't knock out run defense. Even our our defense yesterday, the linebackers. When we spied, we have a very athletic front. I was satisfied with it. We kept David Montgomery, who's he's actually a great running back. I don't know what the Bears were doing early in the year when they was switched. They were like having like a running back by committee with Herbert, but I feel like David Montgomery should be your feature back. And I'm not just saying this because I had him on all my fantasy teams last year, but he's a great back.
Yes, sir. I agree. So both teams actually get pretty good on the ground, but even though Justin Fields led their team in rushing. As far as the Falcons, as you saw, Tyler Algier had 8 carries for 55. Cordero had 10 for 52. Again, we didn't really get Caleb Huntley involved in the rushing attack. They're going to probably see him get back involved in the next couple of games. So, once again, of course, you guys should already know we don't really put up a lot of stats offensively on this pass attack. Kyle Pitts led the team 3 for 43. Damiere Byrd had 2 for 29. McCole Pruitt had a catch. Cordero Hodge had a catch. As you saw, Drake London caught a touchdown yesterday. For the Bears, David Montgomery led the team in receiving. So, it wasn't really a big day on neither side. And, of course, the Falcons lost 2 fumbles in the game. Cordero lost 1. Avery lost 1. The Falcons had forced 2 fumbles, but they got back on the recovery. So, it didn't really matter. But let's look at the defensive stats. Rashaan Evans led the team in tackles again with 11. Michael Walker had 8. By the way, Rashaan Evans needs to be re-signed. Terry Fontenot, if you're watching this, he needs to be re-signed. He's a really, really solid linebacker. I'm glad we gave him a year deal. I think we should bring him back. But Arnold Ebiketie having a great rookie season. 6 tackles, 5 solo. Had a sack, quarterback hit, and 2 tackles for a loss. Troy Anderson had a big tackle for a loss early in that game. Lorenzo Carter had a sack yesterday. 5 tackles, 4 solo, got a quarterback hit. Bull Anderson had a sack. And, of course, Grady does it all. Jarrett had a sack yesterday as well. And, of course, Jalen Hawkins had an interception on the Bears side. Go ahead, bro.
Shout out to Troy Anderson. He made a spectacular play on Justin Fields in open field. I've been very impressed by him. I already knew he had speed, but he's actually going to be a solid piece for us down the line.
I agree. You got to give him more reps at linebacker too, because Michael Walker is not it. I'm gonna go ahead and put out. I like Michael Walker last season, but he's not it. Kyle, what's going on, brother? It's good to see you. Good to see you checking in. Let's go to the rest of the stat line. There was only 1 interception, as we mentioned. There, Cordero Patterson had that punt, the big punt return, 103-yard NFL record breaking. Younghoe Koo had a 2 for 2 yesterday. Field goals with a 53-yard attempt to give us a lead. Santos I don't know if y'all seen that field. That field goal was terrible yesterday that he kicked. I think he kicked the knuckleball. That was awful. I know you know the kick I'm talking about.
That was actually his first
bro?
missed field goal of the season.
Really? That is actually surprising. You know, the Bears usually have bad luck with kickers. So, of course, as you see, kind of an even game stat wise. So, this is your box score for yesterday's game. So, that was just the box score from yesterday. So, back to this team. Mike, how do you feel about this team entering the Washington game? Are you nervous about that game? Or are you just like, we'll see what happens?
You know, when you face a team that's hot like the Commanders, you usually pause because you're like, we might be in for a long day, which I still believe we will. But there's just some franchises that they always seem to get in their own way. And at times, our own Falcons have been that same way. So it's really, you can throw out the records when two teams like this face off against each other. I think you're going to get a good game. I don't think you're going to get a blowout either way. I think it's going to be within a 10-point game either way. The Falcons are going to have to play some good football, of course, because we're on the road. And like I said, they're playing well. Their defense is historically always, in the last 4 or 5 years, been good, even though they've had great – these same players that they have now, they've tipped Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Sweat, Chase Young. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but they have had solid defensive players over the last 5 or 6 years. Now, they haven't always played well. I've seen them give up 30, 40 multiple times, but they seem to have found something under Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron. And it's going to be tough. The Falcons are going to have to match their intensity on defense, because I think the offense is going to be in for a long day. But what I will say is we have an opportunity. Our defense has an opportunity. I said at the beginning of the year, before we even played a game, we had 19 sacks last year. We will have more sacks than 19 sacks this year. Right now, we have 17. We have a pass rush, a competent pass rush. So we need to get after Taylor Heineke. Ron Rivera has already said that Carson Wentz is a backup quarterback. I would have felt more comfortable playing against Carson Wentz. But we got Taylor Heineke. We had a great game against them last year. That was an exciting game. So we're going to be in for a long day.
Yes, sir. I agree with that 100% as far as that Washington game. And this is going to be a tricky game for both teams, because although Washington has been hot, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Washington actually is pretty bad on offense. They actually, I just talked about, now they've gotten better with Taylor Heineke, but they currently have been on the field less than we have. I'm talking about our time on the field. The Washington Commanders entered the day. They've been on the field. I'm sorry, let me take that back. Their starting position is usually bad. They have the worst starting position, but they're 18th as far as being on the field. But the thing that's going to be key is, can the Falcons offense move the ball against that really good defense that don't give up a lot? They're not on the field much. They're number one in time of possession. They're number one in plays average per drive. They're number 6 in yards per drive. They're number 11 in points. They're top 12 in points allowed. They're 6 in yards. They're a top 10 rush defense. So it's going to be a tricky matchup for the Falcons this weekend, especially without a Kyle Pitts. So, Heineke's definitely tough, and you are right. They are really bad on offense.
Yeah, I was just looking what you just said, and you're exactly right. Their run game is really non-existent. Their Antonio Gibson averages 3.7 yards per carry. Brian Robinson, the rookie from Alabama, averages 3.4 yards per carry. I believe, even though we've typically had a top 10 rushing defense over the last 4 or 5 years, but this year we're like 18th, especially after that last game against the Bears. I think we're like 18th, 19th right now. But I believe that our rushing defense can hold them below 4 yards per carry, and we can do that. I believe in AJ Terrell against what's his name? Terry McLaurin.
Yes, Terry McLaurin.
But the key for them is going to be, how do we match up against Curtis Samuel? How are they going to get him the ball? He can wreck a game plan. You know, I know the offense hasn't been great, but if you don't contain, think about against the Panthers, Laviska Shenault. What he scored a touchdown on what type of play? That's what Curtis Samuel has, that type of playmaking ability. So he's gonna be in the game plan with a gold star on him, because you cannot allow him to wreck the game plan.
Yes, sir. I agree with that 100%. I definitely do. It's gonna be a fun one, guys. So y'all make sure y'all tune in to that game. And before we get out of here, I know we're still in the playoff hunt, but it is never too late to start discussing what the projections are looking like in the mock drafts for us. We are getting ready to enter the final week of the regular season for college football before championship week is in 2 weeks from now. So just kind of want to touch on a couple of mocks and just kind of get Mike's opinion on this too. And even you guys that are watching, if you got any comments on it, go ahead and chime in. But Mike, the first source coming from Draft Network has the Atlanta Falcons taking Kelee Ringo from the University of Georgia at 15 if they were picking today at that point. The reason they're saying the Falcons' offensive identity is unsurprisingly rooted in running the football and winning the line of scrimmage. They've got enough pieces in place. I'm going to actually pull up so everyone can see what I'm looking at. My apologies, everyone. I'm going to pull it up so you guys can see what I'm looking at as well, so I don't just be reading something to leave you guys out the loop. Okay, let me add this up real quick. All right, here we go. So they said the Falcons' offensive identity is surprisingly rooted in running the football and winning the line of scrimmage. And they've got enough pieces in place for me to look at the other side of the ball. Excuse me, I'm sorry. To look at the other side of the ball. And their biggest weakness is the secondary. The Falcons have youth on the side up front, but their cornerback has little room beyond A.J. Terrell and Isaiah Oliver in the long term. Kelee Ringo is a freakishly big corner with excellent speed to play on an island. Mike, how would you feel if the Falcons went to the podium and took Kelee Ringo 15th in April?
Well, the last show that we did, the guy under Kelee, that's actually one of the guys that I've been really high on. And I was like, I believe that's one of the guys that I believe the Falcons could draft. But Kelee, I believe he just has that it factor. He has a knack for making the plays that need to be played in crunch time. And I think he'll be a great sidekick or partner to AJ Terrell. I want to see what we're gonna do with Hayward. I want to see if he's gonna come back this year, or if he will be, inclined to come back on a 1-year deal next year, especially with the injury this year, and still maybe draft a Kelee Ringo, because when you're able to learn under a veteran and then you're able to learn under a player like AJ Terrell, I feel like that can only make Kelee even better than he already is. But I'm looking at 247 Sports right now, and they actually have us drafting at 14. So I think this might have been last week. And they had us drafting Jordan Addison from USC. What do you think about that?
I actually like that. I don't have an issue with, you said Jordan Addison? Yeah, I seen that too. I seen a Jordan Addison mock as well. And I have no problem with Jordan Addison being a Falcon, because you got to add another piece eventually. You lost Calvin Ridley. I think the Falcons they in this position again where you can go best player available, because we need everything still to an extent. I don't want to say we are horrible, but we need talent. So I have no problem with that.
We talked about it on the last show. It's really hard to project the Falcons right now, regardless of what they do the rest of the season. Let's say they lose the rest of their games, even if they win the rest of their games. It's hard to project the Falcons because they're going to have north of $80 million in cap space. So now you're in the position of free agency. And so I don't envy the position that Terry Fontenot is in, because although he's in a prime position to make some great decisions this offseason, now you have to kind of navigate, do I want to spend this on free agency, or do I want to get it through the draft? And that's good for us because that gives us more opportunities. but he's going to be in a very difficult position. Well, he's currently in a difficult position because he's, him and the scout team are currently scouting right now, but that's something that you have to also look into, which is kind of difficult to kind of project what the Falcons are going to do in the draft because of that all that money in free agency.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jay, what's up, bro? Said Mariota MVP. I'm not saying nothing to that. You tried to get me started, Jay. All right, let me hit the Nets. Let me go ahead and hit the Nets mock real quick. I think it was from SI. Let me pull that one up real quick. This is from MSN, excuse me. They have the Falcons taking Brian Breesy out of Clemson at 15, a defensive lineman who boasts experience on the biggest stages and exhibits impressive unidirectional movement, skills, power, and length. Brian Breesy could be an elite defender if he grows more consistent with his technique. If the Falcons go pick Brian Breesy, I want to go back to a 4-3 defense because I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. I think we have found our edge rusher of the future with Arnold Ebiketie. I think he's going to be solid long term. So I definitely think that would be a great move. I would put him alongside with Grady Jarrett. He would absolutely wreak havoc with him out there on defense. So I'm not against that move, actually. I would love to have Brian Breesy as a Falcon. I actually thought that he was more so would be a top 5 pick. And let's see. Ted, what's up, bro? He said that Breesy is the white Aaron Donald, mark my words. I feel the same way about him. I'm a big fan of Brian Breesy. I actually thought it was going to be a top 3 to 5 pick, but there's a guy out of the University of Georgia by the name of Jalen Carter who is just wrecking havoc. He's going to probably be the first non-offensive player off the board. But Mike, how do you feel about the Brian Breesy projection?
I feel like this is sound crazy. I feel like he's raw. I don't feel like we've seen I don't think we've seen even the glimpses of his potential yet. I feel like he's one of those players that, like, the casual fan that doesn't watch, Clemson just because Clemson hasn't been really flashy this year, and then they lost, and they're kind of on the outside looking in as far as the playoff. They're not your prototypical Clemson team with all the flashy names like Deshaun Watson or just the receivers that they've had over the years, and even ETN a couple of years ago, Trevor Lawrence. But I think he's one of those players that when he touches the field in the NFL, he's gonna cause havoc. He's gonna wreck game plans. But I say this next thing, I hope Arthur Smith. I wonder how much pull Arthur Smith has in the draft room, because I've been having this slight suspicion lately that he wants another offensive piece. And I have 2 names that I think that he really wants. Quentin Johnson, the receiver, and Michael Mayer, the tight end for Notre Dame. Can you imagine Kyle Pitts and Michael Mayer? And I understand. You're like, why you want to draft a tight end when we don't even throw to the tight end we have now? I'm telling you, that's predicated based off the quarterback that we have. We have a quarterback situation that is fluid right now. Like Nate said earlier, if we lose, we might see a change at quarterback. But what I'm saying is, just give it time. The quarterback is really just holding us up right now. And I'm a fan of Mariota, but I think if you get a quarterback in there that you trust, that can make those throws, I'm telling you, if you add a Quentin Johnson or a Michael Mayer, the league, at least at the bare minimum, the NFC South is over with. We running it for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to what you just said about it. And I posted what Jay said about Brian Breesy. He's kind of said what you said, that he needs to see a little more consistency out of him. And Quentin Johnson is a baby Julio Jones. I would love to see that tandem of him, Pitts, in London. But I definitely am agreeing with you 100% as far as could it be another offensive piece? Because there's going to be another mock that, like you said, a mock that you saw have us taking Jordan Addison. The other one that I'm going to pull up, it has us taking Jordan Addison also. So it's like the Falcons are in one of those positions where it's like, is Mariota y'all know on record, I give Mariota so much heat. I will admit that 100,000%. But I also have my moments where it's like, is Arthur holding this situation back too? Is he not trusting that Marcus can stand in that pocket and throw, or he just feel like, okay, you just go out here and just do enough to win? Because to me, if that's the case, then you holding your guy back. Because I feel like, to me, we've seen games where Mariota, like the Carolina game, Mariota hit some throws that game. He made some plays that game. But I also feel like, don't make it to where you're truly up in a position where, okay, we're limiting the quarterback so much, because a lot of your fan base want to see Desmond Ridder, but Marcus Mariota's winning the ball games. So it's a tricky thing. So it's kind of one of those things where I want to see, can we become effective at quarterback before this season is? Because I'm like you, Mike. I don't think we're going to touch a quarterback first round at all. I think that is way out the window. I think they've signed Mariota as that bridge quarterback to kind of get Desmond Ridder ready. I think that's really the case at this point, even though we haven't seen him yet. But yeah, that's one of the things. Let me hit this comment real quick. Tevin, what's up, bro? He said, I'm cool taking a receiver first round. Just can't miss again. Like, really, my only opinion is I would take best on the board, O-line, D-line, corner, take a wide receiver to second. I'm not against that either, because to me, I want to have a game changer at whatever position we have at 15. Not say that the wide receiver wouldn't do that for us, but I mean, if I'm Atlanta, depending on where you're picking next in April, if you sit there and go get you a solid D lineman or a corner and go possibly get you a Charles Tillman. What's that boy first name? You know who I'm talking about, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, because I know everybody's high on Jalen Hyatt, but Cedric Tillman is just as solid at wide receiver. So if you want to look at that maybe in the second round of draft, I'm not against it either. What you think about that comment, Mike?
So I got a question, and don't shoot the messenger. Just a question. With the amount of money that we're gonna be able to have during free agency, if Terry and the guys feel like they see the guys they want and they know they're gonna be able to outbid other teams, do you foresee a scenario where the Falcons trade back in the draft to get more draft capital?
Absolutely. If the Falcons can go to free agency and make certain solid moves, and depending on who it is, you definitely can say, all right, we don't need it. If let's say if the Falcons was to finish with 7 wins and picking at 15, I'm not sitting here and I'm going to try to keep some money in the books for next season so I can get back and get me some talent throughout the draft. Because the one thing that I will say is this: statistically, it does not show, but the 2022 class has all started to show me in some way there's some potential with all these guys. Drake London is going to be the receiver of the future. Troy Anderson reminds me of a young Keith Brooken. I said it. I'm going to put that out here on tape. I said that he's going to be a young Keith Brooken. You heard it here first. Ebiketie to me is going to be our future edge. Who else am I missing out? Of course, Desmond Ridder is going to be getting his snaps.
D'Angelo Malone has shown some flashes.
D'Angelo Malone had a couple of really good plays yesterday too. So
Tyler Algier.
Yeah, Tyler Algier has been producing. So to me, again, this was a very no-name draft that has been producing for the Falcons this year. And I remember we was on air back in April saying, hey, the Falcons did a good job of the draft. But, of course, the casual fans like, oh, my God, who is this guy? We ain't get this guy. We ain't get that guy. But they actually had a pretty good draft. So, to me, the way that they were hitting in the draft, I'm cool with trading back. Let's see. Ryan, what's going on, bro? He said, Big Nate back at it better than ever. I appreciate that, man. Good to see you tune in. But let me hit this CBS Sports projection. And I think we're going to be getting close to wrapping it up. I appreciate y'all that's been tuned in most of the show, man. Y'all definitely been bringing some great comments. But let's go to the CBS Sports projection. Mike, this is the second one we've seen. Jordan Addison from USC. Addison isn't the big target, but he's one of the most dynamic players in the country who can line up anywhere. Plus, there's room for a shifty yards at the catch machine that's given that the Falcons have previously used first rounders on Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Now Arthur Smith needs to see what he has in Desmond Ridder if Marcus Mariota isn't going to be asked to push the ball down the field. That's an intriguing comment that they just made as far as this as well. That's going to be an intriguing comment that they made as far as Jordan Addison. And to me, if the Falcons did go get a wide receiver, you now have a solid group of offensive weapons in Atlanta. You have Jordan Addison, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. You could possibly maybe get you're putting together a nice group on offense. So gonna get tricky. Gonna get tricky for the Falcons. What do you think about that Jordan Addison pick, Mike?
I'm a fan. This is one of those times where I think like you mentioned earlier, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think you can go corner with Keely Ringo. You can go receiver. You can go offensive line if you choose. Like you can go on deep. Like I think that Terry Fontenot and his staff, they did so well in the draft that they have developed some type of grace or comfort with the fan base that, all right, if you say you want to go and get this player, we're going to trust you. You did so well last year. I think that wherever they're leaning towards, we're going to be okay. And it's no surprise. I mean, just look, I know he was the, I guess, protege or second in command to Mickey Loomis in New Orleans, but New Orleans, they built some very successful teams. They kind of they've kind of gone downhill since Terry got there. I don't know if that's a correlation or not, but I'm just saying. And the Falcons have started trending up since he's been in Atlanta. So I'm not taking anything away from Mickey Loomis. He's a great GM, but I'm excited. I'm excited about the current season to see what we're going to do. Right now we're playing with house money. If we win, we win. If we lose, all right, that's just helping our draft position. So the Falcons are in prime position to make some noise currently and in the future.
You're right about that, 100% right about that. And, hey, that's really going to wrap up this show, everybody. I appreciate you tuned in. And this show, this last comment before we get off of here. Tevin said, what I tell you, Nate and Terry, we trust. Yes, sir, and Terry, we trust. But with that note, this has been another recap of the Atlanta Falcons Chicago Bears game. And hey, we appreciate y'all tuning in. If Mike don't have anything else to say, we're gonna get out of here.
Man, what a game yesterday. But just like in the losses, we gotta move forward. We got a big game this week, and the landscape can shift just this week, depending on how we show up and play. It's gonna be a great game. I'm excited for it. But hey, it's a great show. We appreciate everything. We love y'all. We appreciate the support. Keep supporting us. Keep rocking with Nate. He's doing a tremendous job over here. Keep supporting.
Hey, man, I appreciate that comment. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, this has been an episode of All In with Nate. We will see you all next week. Until then, rise up and have a great week. Oh, happy Thanksgiving, by the way.